Hi, I'm Odin, and welcome to DIY Prop Shop, where we build props using everyday materials without breaking the bank. Today I'm going to make Cloud's Fusion Sword from Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. The Fusion Sword looks like the next evolution of Cloud's Buster Sword from Final Fantasy VII, possibly the most iconic weapon of the entire series. My plan is to make this out of a pile of VVA foam and glue it together with about half a pint of contact cement, because this is a monster sword. So to start, I'm going to print out a full-size set of plans and use those to cut out my pieces. So what I have here on this side is all the pieces layered together. This is actually the profile of the Fusion Sword, and over here I have the main pieces that I need to build and then layer together. So I have the primary blade, the secondary blade, the weird little sextant piece that goes on it, and then the pieces down here that I'm going to use for the crossguard. For the handle, I'm going to use a piece of PVC pipe. Everything will just be layers of EVA foam. It'll be glued together with contact cement, and then once I'm finished with it, I'm going to coat it with Plastidip and spray paint it silver. I want to make sure I cut out on the inside of all of my lines. I'm going to use a straight edge to keep my lines straight, because that's actually where the edges of the paper were, and the paper is the right size, not the outside of the lines that I drew. Now, if you wanted to take it easy on yourself, you've got the Buster Sword, and you're almost done. First, I glued the edges of the foam mat together. Then, using a disposable roller set, I laminated all the layers of foam together. Start at the point, because it's the most important part for me. So I decided to go with 3 layers of foam to make it a little bit thicker and to make the blade a little bit stiffer. But now what I need to do is actually sharpen it and make it look like a sword. So what I'm going to do is cut the blade portions off of my original template, but I'm going to leave corners on so I can line it up with where I need it to be and then draw it on with a pen. So I'm going to sand it off with an orbital sander. I'll use a coarse grain first and then come back with a fine grain to finish it off. The tip of the blade got damaged while I was sanding it, so I cut off the damage, added a small piece of the thick craft foam, and then sand it down to fit. So now that I put a sharpened edge on my blade, what I want to do is add a piece of PVC that's going to run down the middle of it, kind of like a long reverse tang, and that'll help fix this problem. So what I'm going to have to do is cut out a trough and then glue in a piece of PVC, and then I'll come back with a new piece of foam and lay it over the top like a veneer, and that'll hide the cut that I made. This veneer piece is cut from a single sheet of 2mm foam that's 3 foot wide and 5 foot long. To glue it on, I used spray adhesive. To cut the final detail that goes on the side, I used my pattern to cut 2 more pieces from the giant roll of foam, gluing them on with spray adhesive. Then sand the edges down to match the blade. Basically, that's the main blade. Or in this case, the blade that represents the 4 interlock blades. Down here in the bottom, there's actually a couple of grips for the swords that are here in the back. I'm just going to wrap some foam down here, spray mount them on, and then this part will be done. And to help make it look like it's multiple pieces, I'll use the rotary tool to make a line down the center of the handles and another one at the tip of the blade. And now I've accomplished everything I want for this piece. I've even got the handles here. What I want to make are the side card blades that go on the side, and then we can do the crossguard. This is the paper pattern for the blade that goes on either side of the main blade. I'm going to put this on in layers. This will be one layer, and then I'll have this glued on top of it. And then I'll have an extra piece of foam underneath it to help make this float off the main blade. What I'm going to need to do with this is actually take my 5mm foam, which isn't quite long enough, but 2 pieces together, put another veneer of that thin black foam across the top, then I can cut out my shape. And I'll do the same thing for this one. There's hex nuts on each side of the blade. I can use real nuts and hope they don't fall off, or I can cut them out of foam. And to cut them out of foam, I'll cut a piece out of my pattern, trace it onto the foam, and then cut out 20 of them. Then I'll sharpen the side blades, build, and attach the handles. Now I want to put all the hex nuts that I cut out along the blade here. To put those in the right spot, I'll just use my pattern again. Lay the piece on, make dots, and glue them down. That's the detail I need for the blades to go on the side, but I don't want to glue them flat onto the main blade. What I'd like to do is actually cut out a small bit of this so it can raise up a little bit and have some space to give it a tiny bit more dimension. I specifically wanted to use black foam so I don't have to worry about painting it. And now that these have a little bit of a float to them, it'll look better on the main sword. The only thing I have left to do is build the crossguard. So the crossguard is actually a box that goes across the bottom down here. And what it does is it helps hold all the individual swords together, since this is the fusion of 6 swords into one blade. My crossguard has to be big enough to fit everything. I tried to make sure that mathematically it's going to be right. I did pretty close. I'm only about 1 layer off. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut these out a little bit bigger, and it'll be fine. That's the center. To make the crossguard, glue all your parts and assemble a box. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out some angles of foam, glue them together and spray mount them inside to reinforce the corners. I'm going to cut out some thin foam and use it to make the 4 panels that go on each side of the crossguard. And then there's more hex nuts we get to stick on it. And I'll add 1 more ring under the crossguard at the top of the handle. And that's all my parts fit together. What I'm going to do now is take it outside and spray paint it with Plastidip. Plastidip is a vitalized spray paint that will smooth all this out. And then when I come back and lightly dust it with silver spray paint, it'll give it a nice metallic look. So I masked off the areas I plan on gluing later, because I want to glue clean foam to clean foam. I'm only trying to lightly mist the silver paint onto the sword. I want a darker silver color for the blade, and if you hit too much silver in one spot, you can always mist it over again with more black spray paint. So I've got all my parts painted. I peeled the blue painter tape back off, so now I can glue all my pieces together with clean foam against clean foam. It'll give me a much better adhesion than if I try to glue onto paint. Once all the pieces are put together, I can do a really light weathering with some black acrylic paint. I can use silver paint for some other highlights, and then I can move on to the handle. I got my crossguard put in place and I realized I didn't paint the circle in here black, which I'd like to have done. So I'm worried about the blade being all one color. It's supposed to be, but it might not have all the detail I want in a photo. So what I'm going to do is add some more of the silver paint along the high edge here on the sawtooth part of the blade. And then I'll feather that in with a wet paper towel. Once it's dry, I'll water down some black paint and add it in all the low areas and smooth that out. And that should really make the detail pop out. So after finishing the weathering, I sealed it with some gloss spray paint. Now what I need to do is worry about the handle. One thing I noticed while working on this was how it was really unbalanced as a sword goes. So I actually added a 7-inch screw, hot glued it in place, and then wrapped some additional baling wire. And that brought the balance point from way the heck out here down to about here, which is a bit more manageable. Now if it was a proper balanced blade, it should be about here, but I wasn't going to go that far. What I need to do is decorate this so it looks appealing. In the actual movie, his handle has got a bit of a leather wrap done to it, kind of like the handle of a bullwhip. And I thought for a while about how I was going to get that exact look, and I finally decided I'll wrap the handle in hockey tape. And I've got my fusion sword from Final Fantasy VII. The toughest part about this whole build is keeping it in frame so you can actually see it on the video. Let us know in the comments below about any other projects you'd like to see us do. And if you try any of these things for yourself, please send us a picture at DIYPropShop@break.com. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe.